Hello and welcome. My name is Larry. This is Believe, Wish, and Live. I'm going to do a video series on the book of Esther. It's going to be like a Cliff Notes series or a compressed notes to video. It's going to be, of course, the wise Queen Esther, the King Xerxes, the drunk, and the foolish aristocrats. Okay, let's get started. Scholars agree is told as a story form and is one of not the best known books in the Old Testament or the older books, called the Tanakh. There are many different versions of this book. Two main ones are from the Hebrew manuscripts and the Greek Septuagint, but the Greek Septuagint adds to the text from the original Hebrew manuscripts, and many scholars in their opinion, it makes no sense. Many think it's because God is not mentioned once in the Hebrew version of Esther, and also not found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Greek version added over 100 verses to the original to make it more religious. Furthermore, there is also a rabbinical version of the Esther in the Talmud. But for this compressed video notes, it will be from the oldest writings, the Hebrew manuscripts, and many believe that it's a true historical event that happened in history. Now, with that being said, let's set up the time frame. Esther was alive sometime between the book of Daniel and the book of Ezra, around 470 BC, which means she was alive during the Persian Empire that conquered the Babylonian Empire, during which time the Israelites and Daniel and his friends were exiled from Judah to the Babylonian Empire. Okay, let's set up the scene for chapter 1. The time frame is the third year of King Xerxes' reign. The kingdom's empire was all the way from the East Indus River in the south to Sudan, west to Libya, and then the north to the north shores of the Black Sea. The place of our story of Esther is in the capital city of Susa. The scene is King Xerxes is throwing a banquet for all of his government officials and showing off his amazing wealth for 180 days. And most likely there's only two banquets, one starting at the beginning of the 80 days and one at the end of the 80 days. This was just to show off all of his wealth and power to his subjects. Continuing on in the chapter, it speaks of marble columns, mosaic flooring, couches for reclining for eating, goblets of gold for the finest wines. Today, just think about Saudi Arabia and its decency and wealth that it has. As the scene unfolds in the chapter, we see that Xerxes seems to be drunk and is drunk most of the time. Continuing on to verse 9, says that the king's wife, Queen Vashti, was holding a banquet for the women because it's being a male-dominated society, and Persian law did not allow men and women to be drinking together because it was also inappropriate for men to be around women if the men were drunk or drinking. Now, with months of being drunk and being in a state of stupidity, the king decided to honor the male guest by letting them view his beautiful wife. He ordered her to come to him immediately, but Queen Vashti refused. She most likely refused because she would be breaking Persian law and also bringing shame on herself being out in front of a drunken aristocrats. King Xerxes, in appropriate order, put her into a bad position. In other words, backed her into a corner. She'd rather die than live in shame the rest of her life. So the king asked the wise men for help on deciding what Persian law he can use as a response. The Persian men quickly expanded the issue that the queen is being disobedient to her husband and it will affect everybody's household within the kingdom. So the law-crazy Persian government decided that the only solution is to create another law. Sound very familiar with our governments today? The new law was Vashti shall never again enter the presence of the king Xerxes, and her loyal position shall be given to another woman better than her. Continuing on in the chapter, we see that the self-centered king is pleased with the solution, so he sent letters to all the providences of the kingdom. Moving on to chapter 2, we see some time has passed since the king ordered the new law and is showing some signs of regret. So the royal and wise court needed to come up with another solution, so the king would not get angry with them because of his discomfort. The Persian kings did have a royal line of family to choose from for a new queen, but they went against custom in order to please the kingdom's obsession with beautiful women. That way, the Persian king could boast of having the most beautiful woman in the Persian Empire, or in the world. This pleased the king, and he appointed officials to bring beautiful women, virgins, to his house of the women under the supervision of Haggai. Keep in mind, these are young women not forced, but most likely eager to get an opportunity to become queen. Then the king would choose a queen. Now the story moves to Esther and Mordecai, the two Benjamite heroes of the story. Esther, the very attractive young woman, was taken care of by Mordecai for many years because her father and mother died. After the king's order was given, Esther was taken to the house of the women. But before she left, Mordecai told her not to tell anyone about her people. Haggai, the supervisor, was in charge of the women, and he decided who stayed and who went home. But quickly Esther impressed Haggai, the supervisor of the women, and he showed favor to her. This favor can only be given by or to Esther because of Yahweh's divine influence on Haggai. That being said, the remaining women went through a 12 months of beautification processes, including lessons in court etiquettes and other refinements. Then, when Esther was brought before the king, she was asked what she would like as a personal gift of atonement, but she took Haggai's advice and asked for nothing, as it appears or apparent that Haggai was truly in favoring Esther. The king saw her and liked Esther more than any other wives and his other concubines. Esther was chosen by Xerxes as his new queen, but at this point her ethnicity plays no role in the story. Then a great banquet was thrown in Esther's honor. Now turning to Mordecai, we are told that every day he walked around in the front of the royal women's court. Apparently he had a official position as a member of the royal court, which allowed him access. While he was sitting at the king's gate, he overheard two men, or the two king's officers, conspiring to murder King Xerxes. Mordecai immediately contacted Esther, and the matter was proven to be true, and the king credited Mordecai, and the two guards were executed. This is only part of the puzzle. This is not happenstance, but divinely done by Yahweh. Now in chapter 3, a new character appears, Haman. And we all say, what? Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's continue. Let's get Haman's identity. It will help us with the story. Haman is a son of a man from the Amalekites. Let's look at what Agagite means. The term Agagite refers to a descendant or the followers of Agag, the Amalekite king that is mentioned in Samuel 1:5-3. Now let's read it. 1 Samuel 15:3. Now go and attack Amalek and completely destroy everything they have. Do not spare them, but kill men and women, children and babies, cows and sheep, camels and donkeys. We see that Saul told the king to leave or be destroyed. Then Saul attacked and won. However, Saul and the Israelites spared Agag and kept the best of the sheep and cattle. He did not obey God's orders. Go and read Exodus 17:8-16 for the reasons why God wanted this done. Amalek is an enemy of Yahweh's people generation after generation. That being said, Haman is an Amalekite, or he has the spirit of Amalek. This is why Mordecai, the Israelite Jew, would not kneel nor bow down to Haman, and that's why he justified his behavior. Is there a spirit of Amalek today? Of course. In the Middle East, in any part of the world that the Jews live. Does someone need to be a descendant of Haggai to have this spirit? No, of course not. Without this understanding, the book of Esther doesn't make much sense. Continuing on, Haman decided to murder all Amalekites people, the Jews, throughout all of Xerxes' kingdom because of his pride and arrogance and the spirit of Amalek. And Haman told the king that the Israelites were not observing the king's laws. So the king agrees to all that Haman said. So Haman summons the king's officials, or the governmental officials of the day. They created letters or his plans and were sent out to all the royal provinces. They were sealed by the king's signet ring, meaning it was law of the land. This decree was even for non-Jews to murder all Israelites, from young to old, including small children and women. It would be on the 13th day of the 12th month. Does this sound familiar? Think of 1933 to 1939. Okay, the next video will be on chapter 4, 5, and 6. Thank you for watching.